The Great Hall of Station Prime had stood for 12,000 years. Its walls were made of living crystal that pulsed with soft light. The ceiling stretched so high that clouds sometimes formed inside it. And today, the 7 most powerful species in the galaxy had gathered to decide the fate of humanity. High Arbiter Zelthrix of the Vorath stood at the central platform. Her body was made entirely of purple crystal, and when she moved, she made a sound like wind chimes. She had ruled the council for 300 years, and in all that time, she had never felt uncertain about a decision. Until now? "We are here to discuss the human problem," she announced. Her voice echoed through the chamber, reaching the ears and sensory organs of thousands of delegates. They have become too dangerous to ignore. The Vorath were the oldest species on the council. They had achieved space travel when most other species were still living in caves. They had seen civilizations rise and fall. They had watched stars die and new ones be born. And in all that time, they'd never encountered anything quite like humanity. Ambassador Crix9 of the Krell stepped forward. He was an insectoid creature, standing on 6 legs, with mandibles that clicked when he spoke. His species shared a hive mind, which meant that when he spoke for billions of Krell across the galaxy. "The humans are breeding out of control," he said. 40 years ago, they discovered faster-than-light travel. In that short time, they have established 17 colonies. 17. It took my species 2,000 years to establish that many. Minister Coralith of the Delphani floated in her water-filled encounter suit. Her species had evolved in the deep oceans of their homeworld, and they could not survive in air. Through the transparent walls of her suit, the delegates could see her jellyfish-like body pulsing with bioluminescent colors. "Their population growth is not the only concern," she said, her voice bubbling through speakers on her suit. "They are violent. Extremely violent. Our observers have documented their history. They have fought thousands of wars among themselves. They have weapons capable of destroying entire planets. And they show no signs of becoming more peaceful." The Amiri representative, a being made entirely of swirling gas contained in a magnetic field, spoke next. "Perhaps we are overreacting. They have shown no aggression toward Council's species." "Not yet," Crix9 replied. "But it is only a matter of time. Our projections show that within 300 years, humans will outnumber all Council species combined. What happens when they decide they want more than just their corner of the galaxy?" High Arbiter Zelthrix raised a crystalline hand for silence. "We have debated this issue for months. The time has come to make a decision. One proposed we invoke Article 7 of the Sovereignty Charter." A murmur passed through the assembly. Article 7 was the most extreme measure available to the Council. It allowed them to place a developing species under direct governance, stripping them of all autonomy until they proved themselves worthy of self-rule. It had not been used in 6,000 years. Under Article 7, Zelthrix continued, humanity will be required to reduce their fleet to defensive vessels only. Their colonies will accept council administrators. Their government will answer directly to this body. They will remain under our control until we determine they are mature enough to govern themselves. The Florith representative, a plant-like being whose flowers served as sensory organs, rustled its leaves in concern. "This seems harsh. The humans have done nothing to deserve such treatment." "They exist," Crix9 said simply. "That is enough. Every projection, every analysis, every simulation shows the same result. If we do not control them now, they will eventually control us. Or destroy us. Those are the only 2 outcomes." The Torvin representative, a massive creature made of silicon and metal, spoke in a voice like grinding stones. "I agree with the Krell. The humans are too dangerous to be allowed freedom. They must be contained." "And what of the Ascended?" Minister Coralith asked. "What do they say?" All eyes turned to the corner of the chamber where the Ascended representatives floated. They were beings of pure energy, so old that no one remembered what physical form they had once possessed. They rarely spoke, preferring to observe and contemplate. Their silence was legendary. Today, as always, they said nothing. Their glowing forms flickered with colors that no other species could interpret. "Very well," Zelthrix said. "We will proceed with the vote." Each species will cast their decision. A simple majority is required for Article 7 to pass. She turned to face the assembly. The Vorath vote yes. Crixnine's mandibles clicked. The Krell vote yes. Minister Corlith's suit bubbled. The Delphani vote yes. The Emiri swirled in their containment field. The Emiri abstain. The Florith rustled. The Florith vote ... Yes. The Torvin ground out their response. The Torvin vote yes. Ascended remained silent, which was recorded as an abstention. The motion passes, Zelthrix announced. 5 votes in favor, 2 abstentions. Article 7 will be invoked against humanity, she gestured, and a holographic display appeared in the center of the chamber. It showed Earth, a blue and green jewel spinning in the darkness of space. Around it, human ships moved like fireflies. We will send them an ultimatum, Zelthrix said. They will have 30 standard cycles to comply with our demands. If they refuse, we will use force to bring them under control. Our fleet outnumbers theirs by a factor of 50. They will have no choice but to submit. The delegates began to disperse, satisfied with their work. They had dealt with troublesome species before. The Rithani had been brought to heel after a brief show of force. The Vex had accepted council governance without any resistance at all. Humanity would be no different. As Zelthrix left the chamber, she paused to look at the holographic image of Earth one more time. Something about those humans troubled her. They were so small, so fragile, so short-lived, and yet they had accomplished more in 40 years than most species accomplished in 1,000. She shook off the feeling. It was simply the novelty of dealing with such a young species. Once they understood the power of the council, they would submit. They would have to. She had no way of knowing that, in a small office on Earth, a woman named Catherine Moore had just finished reading the council's demands. She had no way of knowing that this woman was already making plans. She had no way of knowing that the council had just made the biggest mistake in its 12,000-year history. The Vorath were old and wise. They had seen everything the galaxy had to offer, but they had never seen anything like humanity, and they were about to learn why that mattered. Catherine Moore had not slept in 3 days. The president of the United Human Congress sat in her office in Geneva, staring at the alien document on her screen. The words had not changed, no matter how many times she read them. Surrender, submit, obey. She was 52 years old. She had spent her entire life fighting for humanity. She had served in the Colonial Defense Forces during the Mars Uprising. She had negotiated peace treaties between Earth and the outer colonies. She had been elected president on a promise to protect human freedom, and now, an alien council she had never heard of was telling her to give that freedom away. The door opened, and her advisors entered the room. Admiral George Callahan was a tall man with gray hair and tired eyes. He had commanded the human fleet for 15 years. General Diana Reyes was shorter but more intense. A woman who had risen through the ranks of the ground defense forces through sheer determination. Secretary of State Paul Whitman was the oldest of the group, a diplomat who had spent 40 years learning how to talk to people. Director of Intelligence Samuel Price was the youngest, a quiet man who knew secrets that would terrify most people. They sat down around the conference table. No one spoke for a long moment. "Tell me our options," Catherine said finally. Admiral Callahan shook his head. "We have 200 warships. They have thousands. If we fight, we lose. And if we surrender?" General Reyes asked. "Then we stop being human," Director Price said. "We become pets. Animals in a cage, waiting for our masters to tell us what to do." Secretary Whitman leaned forward. "There may be another way. They have invited us to send a delegation to Station Prime. They expect us to come and accept their terms. But what if we sent a delegation that changed their minds?" Catherine raised an eyebrow. "Changed their minds? How?" "These aliens have never met humans before," Whitman explained. "They have studied us from a distance. They have read reports and watched recordings. But they have never actually talked to us. They do not understand what we are." General Reyes nodded slowly. "You want to show them." "Exactly. We send them people who represent the best and worst of humanity. People who will make them understand that we are not like other species. People who will make them afraid. Catherine considered this. Who did you have in mind? The selection process took 3 days. Catherine personally reviewed every candidate. She needed people who were brave but not reckless. Smart but not arrogant. Strong but not cruel. She needed people who could look an alien council in the eye and make them blink. The first choice was obvious. Commander Nicole Harper was the most decorated officer in the human fleet. She had fought in 3 colonial conflicts and won every single one. Her tactical brilliance was legendary. But more importantly, she had a presence. When she walked into a room, people paid attention. When she spoke, people listened. Nicole was 38 years old, with short brown hair and eyes that seemed to look right through you. She had scars on her hands from a battle where her ship was boarded by pirates. She had killed 4 of them with nothing but a metal pipe before reinforcements arrived. When Catherine asked her to lead the delegation, she simply nodded and said, "When do we leave?" The second choice was Dr. Marcus Webb, a xenanthropologist who had spent 20 years studying alien cultures. He understood how other species thought. More importantly, he understood how to make them think differently. He was a small man with glasses and a gentle voice, but his mind was sharper than any weapon. Lieutenant Danny Cruz was chosen for his skills as a pilot. He had once flown through an asteroid field to rescue a stranded mining crew. His ship had been damaged beyond repair, but he had brought everyone home alive. He was young, only 25. With a quick smile and faster reflexes, Dr. Linda Cho was a medical officer who had served on the frontier. During a plague outbreak on a colony world, she had performed surgery on 6 different alien species to save their lives. She understood biology in ways that most doctors could not imagine. She also understood that sometimes knowledge of how to heal could be turned into knowledge of how to hurt. Sergeant Victor Ruiz was a Marine. He had held a defensive position against overwhelming odds for 18 hours during a rebel attack. He had run out of ammunition after the first hour. He had run out of weapons after the 6th. By the end, he was fighting with nothing but a combat knife and his bare hands. When rescue finally arrived, they found him standing over a pile of enemy bodies, still ready to fight. The final choice was the most surprising. Amelia Grant was 9 years old. She had been on the Proxima colony when a structural failure caused a massive collapse. She had been trapped underground with 12 other children. The adults had all died in the initial collapse. Rescue teams estimated it would take a week to reach them. Amelia had kept those children alive for 6 days. She had rationed their food. She had treated their injuries. She had dug through rubble with her bare hands to find water. When the rescue teams finally broke through, they expected to find bodies. Instead, they found 12 scared but living children. Led by a girl who refused to let them give up, Catherine met with the delegation before they departed. They stood in the hangar bay of the diplomatic vessel, a sleek ship designed for speed rather than combat. They wore their normal clothes, not diplomatic uniforms. That was intentional. Catherine did not want them to look like politicians. She wanted them to look like humans. "You understand what I am asking you to do?" she said. Commander Harper nodded. "You want us to scare them?" "I want you to make them understand," Catherine corrected. "These aliens think they know what we are. They have read about our wars. They have seen our weapons, but they do not understand what drives us. They do not understand why we fight." She looked at each of them in turn. "Show them. Show them what humanity is, and make them realize that they cannot control something they do not understand." The delegation boarded the ship. As it lifted off and headed for the stars, Catherine watched from the observation deck. She had done everything she could. The fate of humanity now rested on the shoulders of 6 people and 1 little girl. She hoped it would be enough. The journey to Station Prime took 2 weeks. During that time, the delegation prepared. They reviewed everything humanity knew about the Council species. They practiced their speeches. They discussed strategy, but mostly they talked. They shared stories about their lives. They talked about their families, their fears, their hopes. They became friends, and they made a promise to each other. No matter what happened, they would not surrender. They would not submit. They would stand together as humans. and they would face whatever came next, the council expected. Submission? They were about to be very disappointed. Station Prime was the largest structure humanity had ever seen. It hung in space like a metal moon, covered in lights and docking ports and antenna arrays that stretched for kilometers. Ships of every size and shape moved around it like fish around a coral reef. The human diplomatic vessel was tiny in comparison. A single drop in an ocean of alien technology, Commander Nicole Harper stood at the viewport and watched as they approached. She had seen many things in her career. She had fought in battles that seemed hopeless. She had faced enemies who wanted her dead. But she had never felt quite like this. The weight of all humanity rested on her shoulders now. Behind her, the delegation waited in silence. Dr. Marcus Webb was reviewing his notes one last time. Lieutenant Danny Cruz was checking his uniform, making sure every button was in place. Dr. Linda Cho was calm, her medical bag resting at her feet just in case. Sergeant Victor Ruiz stood at attention, his scarred hands clasped behind his back, and little Amelia Grant sat in a chair that was too big for her. Swinging her legs and watching the station grow larger, the ship docked with a gentle thump. The airlock cycled. A green light appeared above the door. Remember what we discussed? Harper said. We are not here to negotiate. We are here to teach. She pressed the button, and the door slid open. The reception hall of Station Prime was designed to impress. The ceiling was so high that it disappeared into darkness. The walls were covered in displays showing the history of the Council, 12,000 years of alien civilization. Hundreds of delegates from dozens of species had gathered to witness the submission of humanity. High Arbiter Zelthrix stood at the front of the hall, her crystalline body glittering in the artificial light. Around her, the other council representatives waited. The insectoid Krell, the aquatic Delphani in their water suits, the gaseous Amiri swirling in containment fields, the plant-like Florith rustling with anticipation, the massive Silicon Torvin, and in the corner, the glowing forms of the Ascended, silent as always. Harper walked through the airlock first. She did not walk like a diplomat. She walked like a soldier. Her steps were confident, her back was straight, her eyes were forward. She wore her combat uniform, complete with the scorch marks from her last battle. She had not cleaned them on purpose. She wanted the aliens to see them. The rest of the delegation followed. Webb with his quiet intelligence, Cruz with his easy confidence, Cho with her calm competence, Ruiz with his warrior bearing, and Amelia, small and young, but walking with a determination that belied her age. Zelthrix stepped forward. Welcome to Station Prime. I am High Arbiter Zelthrix. We are prepared to discuss the terms of your. We are not here to discuss terms. Harper interrupted. Her voice was not loud, but it carried through the hall with perfect clarity. Every alien in the room heard her. Every alien in the room stopped moving. We are here to explain why your vote was a mistake. For a long moment, no one spoke. The aliens simply stared at the human woman who had just interrupted the High Arbiter of the Galactic Sovereignty Council. Such a thing had never happened before. It was unthinkable. Ambassador Crixnine recovered first. His mandibles clicked in rapid anger. You dare speak to the Council this way? Your species exists because we allow it. You will show proper respect or face the consequences. Dr. Webb stepped forward. He seemed almost relaxed, like a teacher about to begin a lesson. Ambassador, I mean no disrespect, but you do not understand what you are dealing with. Please, allow me to explain. He raised his tablet, and suddenly the walls of the reception hall came alive with images. The displays that had been showing Council history now showed something very different. They showed human history. 200,000 years ago, Webb began, our ancestors lived in caves. They were small and weak. They had no claws, no fangs, no armor. Every predator on our planet could have killed them easily. The images showed early humans huddled around fires, surrounded by darkness. But they survived. Do you know how? They learned to make tools. They learned to work together. They learned to fight. The images changed. Stone weapons, spears, bows and arrows. They killed the predators that hunted them. Then they killed each other. For territory, for resources, for beliefs, for reasons they had forgotten by the time the killing stopped. Wars flashed across the screens, armies clashing with swords and shields, cannons firing across battlefields, trenches filled with mud and blood, mushroom clouds rising over ruined cities. We have been at war with ourselves for our entire existence, Webb continued. We have invented more ways to kill each other than you can possibly imagine. Chemical weapons, biological weapons, nuclear weapons, weapons that can destroy planets, weapons that can destroy stars. The council members shifted uneasily. They had known humanity was violent, but seeing it displayed so openly was something else entirely. But here's the important part, Webb said. We are still here. Every war, every plague, every disaster, we have survived. Not because we are strong, not because we are smart, but because we refuse to give up. Commander Harper stepped forward. You think you can control us? You think that if you threaten us with your fleets and your armies, we will submit? But you are wrong. She pointed at the screens, which now showed images of humans rebuilding after disasters. Cities rising from ruins. Families reuniting after wars. Children playing in places that had once been battlefields. Every time we are knocked down, we get back up. Every time we are defeated, we come back stronger. You could destroy our fleet. You could burn our colonies. You could kill billions of us, and we would still fight. We would fight with ships, with weapons, with our bare hands if necessary. Sergeant Ruiz spoke next. His voice was deep and rough. I once held a position for 18 hours against 200 enemies. I ran out of bullets after the first hour. I ran out of weapons after 6. By the end, I was fighting with a knife in my fists. He held up his hands. They were covered in scars. When they finally sent reinforcements, they asked me why I did not retreat. I told them I did not know how. Humans do not retreat. We do not surrender. We fight until we win or we die trying. Dr. Cho approached Minister Corlith's water suit. The Delphani floated backward nervously. Your species is remarkable, Cho said softly. You have evolved to survive in high-pressure environments. But that same adaptation makes you vulnerable to rapid pressure changes. She smiled, but there was no warmth in it. We have weapons designed to create rapid pressure changes. We call them bombs. We have been making them for hundreds of years. One well-placed explosion could wipe out an entire Delphani city. The minister's translucent body paled to almost white. Lieutenant Cruz grinned at the Krell ambassador. Your hive mind is impressive. Billions of individuals working as one. But our scientists figured out years ago that certain electromagnetic frequencies can disrupt that connection. One pulse. And suddenly, you are not a hive anymore. You are billions of confused individuals who have never had an independent thought in their lives. Snine's mandibles stopped clicking. He stood perfectly still. Finally, little Amelia walked to the center of the hall. The aliens looked down at her with something like pity. What could a child possibly have to say? When I was 8 years old, she began, her voice small but steady. I was trapped underground with 12 other kids. The ceiling had collapsed. The adults were all dead. We had a little bit of food and no water. She looked up at the towering alien forms around her. Everyone said we would die. The rescue team said it would take a week to reach us. We only had food for 2 days. But I would not let us give up. We rationed our food. We dug through the rubble to find water pipes. When some of the kids got hurt, I bandaged their wounds with pieces of our clothes. Her eyes met Zelthrix's crystalline gaze. When they finally reached us, I was still standing. Still ready to keep going? She raised her chin. Want to know what humans are? We are the people who survive when everyone says we should die. We are the people who fight when everyone says we should surrender. And we are the people who will never ever stop. The silence in the hall was absolute. High Arbiter Zelthrix had lived for 500 years. In that time, she had seen empires rise and fall. She had watched species evolve from primitive creatures into spacefaring civilizations. She had made decisions that affected billions of lives. Nothing had ever surprised her until now. She stood in the private council chamber with the other representatives. Far from the human delegation, the humans had been escorted to guest quarters while the council debated, but the debate was not going the way anyone expected. "They are bluffing," Ambassador Crixnine insisted. His mandibles clicked nervously. "They must be bluffing. Their fleet is nothing compared to ours. We could destroy them in a single day, could we?" The voice came from the corner of the room. Everyone turned to look. The Ascended had spoken. In 600 years, the Ascended had attended every council meeting. They had observed every debate, witnessed every vote, watched every species that came before the council. And in all that time, they had spoken perhaps a dozen words. Now, their glowing forms pulsed with strange colors as they floated forward. "We have been observing," the Ascended said. Their voice was like music, like wind, like something ancient and unknowable. "We intercepted the humans' communications during their journey here. What we found was ... illuminating." They projected a recording into the center of the room. It showed Commander Harper speaking to someone on a screen. "If negotiations fail, initiate Protocol Omega. Target the Council homeworlds simultaneously. Focus on infrastructure first. Food production, power generation, communications. Make them understand that winning against us will cost them everything they have." Minister Corlith's suit bubbled with alarm. "Protocol Omega? They have plans to attack our homeworlds." "They have plans for everything," the Ascended replied. "We intercepted 17 different tactical scenarios during their journey. They have analyzed every weakness of every council species." The Ascended projected more data, diagrams, analyses, battle plans. They know that Vorath crystal becomes brittle at certain sound frequencies. A single weapon, tuned to the right frequency, could shatter an entire Vorath. City Zelthrix felt something she had not felt in centuries. Fear. They know that Krell Hive. Minds can be disrupted by electromagnetic pulses. One well-placed attack could leave billions of Krell unable to function. Crixnine went very still. They know that Florith are vulnerable to certain chemical compounds that humans consider recreational. What you call fertilizer could be used as a weapon against you, the Florith representatives. Flowers wilted visibly. They know that Torvin silicon structures can be corroded by acids that humans produce in their own stomachs, that the Emiri can be dispersed by strong magnetic fields, that the Delphani cannot survive outside their pressure suits. The Ascended's glow intensified. For every species on this council, the humans have developed multiple ways to kill you. Not because they want to, but because that is how they think. They look at every situation and ask themselves one question. If this becomes a fight, how do we win? The Torvin representative spoke, his voice like grinding rocks. "This changes nothing. We still have superior numbers. We still have superior technology. Do you have superior will?" The Ascended asked. "Consider their history. Less than 200 years ago, they fought a war that killed 60 million of their own kind. 60 million. And when it was over, they rebuilt. Within a single generation, they were stronger than before." "Ash!" The Ascended floated closer to the council members. "They have survived ice ages, plagues that killed half their population. They have survived asteroid impacts, volcanic eruptions, and weapons of their own making that could have destroyed their entire species. Each time, they came back. Each time, they adapted. Each time, they grew stronger." "What are you suggesting?" Zelthrix asked. "I am suggesting that we have made a mistake. We looked at humanity and saw a young species that needed to be controlled. We should have seen what they truly are, and what is that?" "Survivors," the Ascended said simply. "They are survivors. They do not just endure hardship, they thrive on it. Every challenge makes them stronger. Every enemy makes them more dangerous. Every time someone tries to destroy them, they learn from it and become harder to destroy." The council members exchanged uncertain looks. "If we try to subjugate them," the Ascended continued, "they will resist. If we send our fleets against them, they will fight. We might win the first battle. We might win the second. But they will learn from each defeat. They will adapt. They will find our weaknesses just as they have already found our weaknesses. And eventually, they will turn our own strength against us. Minister Corlith's voice trembled. Then what do? We reconsider our position. Zelthrix called for the human delegation to return. When they entered the private chamber, Commander Harper walked in first, just as she had before. Her expression gave nothing away. We have reconsidered our position, Zelthrix announced. We are prepared to negotiate. Harper shook her head slowly. No. The single word hung in the air. Negotiation implies that we have something you want, Harper continued. We do not want anything from you. We do not want your technology. We do not want your territory. We do not want your approval. We just want to be left alone. She stepped closer to the council platform. So here's what is going to happen. Humanity will continue to expand. We will colonize new worlds. We will build our fleet. We will grow and develop at our own pace. And when we encounter your species, we will be friendly. We will trade with you. We will share knowledge with you. We might even help you if you ask nicely. Her voice hardened. But if you ever try to control us again, if you ever vote to take away our freedom, if you ever send your fleets to threaten our worlds, we will burn your civilization to the ground and scatter the ashes across the galaxy. She paused to let her words sink in, not because we want to, but because you will have left us no choice. That is what humanity is. We do not start fights, but we finish them. Dr. Webb stepped forward. You have ruled this galaxy for 12,000 years. You have never faced a real challenge. You have forgotten what it means to struggle for survival. We have not. We never will. Sergeant Ruiz cracked his scarred knuckles. You think your fleets make you strong? But strength is not about numbers. Strength is about will. The will to fight when you are outnumbered. The will to keep going when you are wounded. The will to sacrifice everything for victory. He looked at each council member in turn. Your species have been at peace for thousands of years. Your soldiers have never fought a real battle. Your people have never known real fear. You have grown soft and comfortable and weak. Lieutenant Cruz grinned. We have been fighting since before we could walk upright. It is in our blood. It is in our bones. You cannot train that kind of instinct. You cannot buy it or build it. You have to earn it through thousands of years of war and death and survival. Little Amelia spoke last. My grandmother used to tell me stories about the old days. Stories about people who survived impossible things. Wars and plagues and disasters. She said that humans are like weeds. You can cut us down, you can burn us, you can poison us, but we always grow back. She looked up at Zelthrix with eyes that had seen too much for someone so young. You cannot control weeds. You can only learn to live with them. The council chamber fell silent. For the first time in 12,000 years, the Galactic Sovereignty Council had nothing to say. 1 year had passed since the human delegation stood before the Galactic Sovereignty Council. 1 year since Commander Harper had told the most powerful beings in the galaxy that humanity would not bow. 1 year since everything changed. The Great Hall of Station Prime looked different now. A new section of seats had been added near the center of the chamber. They were smaller than the others, designed for human bodies. The delegation from Earth sat there, not as prisoners, not as subjects, but as observers. It was a compromise that satisfied no one, but offended everyone equally. Nicole. Harper had been promoted to ambassador after her performance. She still wore her old uniform, still kept the scorch marks visible. They reminded her of who she was and where she came from. They reminded the council to tie. Arbiter Zelthrix called the session to order. Her crystalline form caught the light as she spoke. The first item on our agenda is the trade agreement with the Human Congress. Harper stood. The agreement has been finalized. Human medical technology will be made available to all council species. Our doctors have developed treatments that can extend lifespans, cure diseases that your species have struggled with for centuries. In exchange, we receive access to Voroth crystal synthesis techniques and Krell bioengineering databases. The council had been reluctant to share such valuable knowledge, but they had learned an important lesson over the past year. Humans were very good at getting what they wanted. This is acceptable, Zelthrix said. The next item concerns the Rithani situation. The Rithani were a species from the outer rim of the galaxy. They had never joined the Council, preferring to remain independent. Recently, they had become a problem. Their raiding ships had been attacking cargo vessels along the major trade routes. 14 ships had been destroyed in the past month alone. The Rithani have rejected all diplomatic contact, Minister Coralith reported. Her water suit bubbled with frustration. Our peacekeeping forces have been unable to stop their attacks. Ambassador Crixnine clicked his mandibles. We should send the full fleet, destroy their ships, burn their colonies, show them the consequences of defying the Council. Harper raised an eyebrow. With what soldiers? Your peacekeeping forces have not fought a real battle in 4,000 years. The Rithani are raiders and pirates. They have been fighting their entire lives. The Council members shifted uncomfortably. She was right, and they knew it. Dr. Marcus Webb, who had stayed on as Harper's advisor, spoke up. The Rithani are not conquerors. They attack because they see weakness. They take what they want because no one has ever stopped them. Show them strength, real strength, and they will find easier targets. What do you propose? Zelthrix asked. Harper smiled. It was not a comforting expression. Let us handle it. 3 weeks later, a human battle group entered Rithani space. The flagship was a destroyer named Defiance. It was not the largest ship in the human fleet, but it was the fastest and the deadliest. 12 frigates flew in formation behind it, along with supply ships and troop transports. Commander Danny Cruz led the fighter wings. He had been promoted after his performance at Station Prime, given command of his own squadron. His pilots were the best humanity had to offer, trained in combat maneuvers that would kill any other species. The Rithani detected the human ships almost immediately. Their war chief, a massive reptilian creature covered in scars from 100 battles, looked at the tactical display and laughed. The humans were outnumbered 3-1. This would be easy. He ordered the attack. The battle lasted for hours. It was not a fight. It was a lesson. Human ships moved in ways that the Rithani had never seen. They dodged and weaved through enemy fire with impossible precision. Their weapons were not more powerful than Rithani weapons, but they were more accurate. Every shot hit its target. The human pilots were fearless. They flew straight at enemy ships, releasing their weapons at the last possible moment before breaking away. Some of them did not break away in time. They died. And the other pilots kept fighting, using the sacrifices of their comrades to create openings in the enemy formation. Sergeant Victor Ruiz led the boarding parties. When a Rithani cruiser was disabled, his Marines cut through the hull and stormed inside. The Rithani were larger and stronger than humans. It did not matter. The Marines fought with a ferocity that the Rithani had never encountered. 1. Rithani warrior later described the experience to his people. He said that fighting humans was like fighting ghosts. They were everywhere and nowhere. They moved through the ship like shadows, appearing from impossible angles, striking before you even knew they were there. In their eyes. Their eyes were the worst part. There was no fear in those eyes. Only determination. By the end of the battle, the Rithani fleet had been reduced to debris. The human battle group had lost 2 frigates and 47 personnel. The Rithani had lost 200 ships and thousands of warriors. The surviving Rithani transmitted their surrender on all frequencies. Back at Station Prime, the Council watched the recorded footage in stunned silence. They saw human ships dancing through enemy fire. They saw human weapons tearing through shields that should have been impenetrable. They saw human soldiers fighting hand-to-hand against enemies twice their size and winning. The Torvin representative asked, "How did they do that?" Harper answered simply, "Practice." She stood and walked to the center of the chamber. "You asked us to submit to your control? You said we were too dangerous, too violent, too unpredictable. You were right. We are all of those things. But you made one mistake." She turned to face the Council. "You thought those were weaknesses? They are not. They are our greatest strengths. The violence that has plagued our history has also taught us how to fight. The unpredictability that concerns you makes us impossible to plan against. The danger we represent is what has kept us alive for 200,000 years. She paused. You wanted to control us? But control is not about power. It is not about numbers or technology or ancient laws. Control is about will. The will to fight when the odds are against you. The will to sacrifice everything for victory. The will to keep going when every rational thought tells you to give up. Dr. Linda Cho stood next. Over the past year, we have established medical stations on 12 council worlds. Our doctors have treated thousands of patients. We have shared our knowledge freely, asked for nothing in return. Our pilots have begun training programs with your peacekeeping forces. We are teaching them how to fight, how to think, how to survive in battle. Sergeant Ruiz stood. Our Marines have been working with your security forces, showing them techniques that have been refined through thousands of years of warfare. Even little Amelia stood, though she barely reached the height of the others. My teachers have been talking to your children, telling them stories about Earth, about our history, about what it means to be human. Harper looked at each council member in turn. You wanted to control humanity? Instead, humanity is going to teach you. We are going to teach you how to fight, how to survive, how to face challenges without fear. We are going to share everything that has made us what we are. She smiled, and this time there was warmth in it, because the galaxy is dangerous. There are threats out there that even the Council does not know about. And when those threats come, you will need us. Not as subjects. Not as servants. As partners, Selthrix was silent for a long moment. Then slowly, she nodded. Perhaps, she said, we have much to learn from each other. In the months and years that followed, humanity spread across the galaxy. Not as conquerors, but as teachers. Human doctors healed the sick. Human engineers built new wonders. Human soldiers protected the weak. Human stories spread to every corner of known space. The Council had voted to command humanity. They had seen a young species and assumed they could be controlled. They had looked at human violence and seen only chaos. They had not seen the truth. Humanity was not just violent. Humanity was passionate. Humanity was creative. Humanity was stubborn and brave and foolish and wonderful. Humanity was everything the galaxy needed, did not know how to ask for. The Council had voted to command humanity instead. Humanity had taught them how to survive, and the galaxy would never be the same.